everyone, welcome to our cookie decorating time together. My name is Denise. I'm the owner of D is for Delicious, and I can't wait to decorate Easter cookies with you today. So before we get started, a few things. I want you to grab a pair of scissors. I'd like you to grab some toothpicks. I'm using this tool we call a boo-boo stick, so it's like a toothpick. Grab some napkins or paper towels, some type of surface to work on so you can cover up your table. It's so easy when you're done to just throw away, wax paper, parchment paper or something. And then wash your hands, because we're gonna be handling our cookies a lot. So why don't you do those things? And then we'll jump back and get going. So let's look in our kit and see what we have in here today. You have a few packages of cookies. Let's just set those aside for right now. We're gonna cut into those in a moment. You've got some colored icing. Aren't these pastels just so pretty? There's a container of special sprinkles. We're gonna set those aside. We'll be needing those later. This right here is what we're going to be using first. So let's set our practice sheet in front of us and some extra piping bags for later as well. So we'll get all our things out and available, and then I'd love to talk with you a little bit about how to use the piping bags. So I know you're probably tempted to just trim these and get started, but before you do, let me just show you how much I'd like for you to trim off. I want you to be careful to just trim off a little bit to begin with. You can always trim more as needed, but trim off just a little bit. And I want you to practice your pressure with your hand and trying to follow along these lines. We're gonna get the hang of how the icing behaves. So I write with my right hand, and that hand is gonna go at the top of my piping bag. And then my other hand just helps guide it along a little bit. It doesn't really do very much. So I'm never going to touch the tip of the piping bag to the paper. I'm going to hover above it just a little bit. So you start squeezing with the hand that's on top and press down and pull up to end your line. So that motion takes some practice, the stopping, where you press down and pull up. And you release pressure at the same time. So that's why we're practicing this today. If you've never done this, this might seem really tricky, but I promise after practicing on this practice sheet, you're gonna have the hang of this. And everyone holds their piping bag at a different angle. Just see what feels comfortable to you. If your icing is not coming out easily, if it's maybe breaking up quite a bit, the problem may be that the hole isn't trimmed enough. So trim off just a tiny bit more. The goal is to have it just cover up the line. You don't want to trim it too wide, or else it'll come out too quickly. So let's go over these sets of lines here. Your hand is just leading the way and the icing is following along. It's a pretty fun challenge, isn't it? With practice, you get better and better. And even if you've decorated cookies with us before, I encourage you to always begin with the practice sheet. It's like a warm-up. Hope everybody's doing well at home on this. Now the circles, I'm warning you, they're the trickiest shape on here. So if this one is really challenging, don't worry. It's challenging for all of us. The circles are a complicated shape because your hand just has to go in that perfect motion. I wish I could peek through and see how everybody's doing and answer any questions you have. At this point, I feel like the biggest challenge people have is if the icing is starting and stopping, if it's not coming out in one like stream. And most likely that's either your pressure of your hand is not squeezing the whole time. If you release pressure, your icing won't come out at the same pace. Also, the way you've trimmed your bag might be part of the problem. If you trim off just a little bit more, the icing may flow easier. And there we have it. Do you feel warmed up, a little more comfortable with how the icing works? I hope so. I'm going to have you trim off the other bags right now. The way that you have had that last bag that you just used on your practice sheet, why don't we just trim off our other bags? We're going to get all our supplies ready now for our first step of our decorating process, which is outlining. So we break cookie decorating into 3 steps. The first step is outlining. The second step is flooding, and the third step is detailing, where you put all the cutesy touches on. We can set that paper aside. We're done with that for now. So let's get our cookies out of our bags and see if you can tell what they are. We gave you 6 different shapes. I think some of them you're gonna be able to figure out right away. Some others, depending on how you hold it, they might be hard to see. All right, so in your kit, you have an egg, you have a chick, we have a peep bunny, we've got a tulip, we have a bunny from the side, and this, my friends, this big cookie is an Easter basket. So we're gonna set this one on the top row. We're gonna outline that one last. So I suggest you put the Easter egg, the duck, and the peep bunny in front of you. We're gonna start with those. Those have more simple lines as we outline and get the hang of how this works. So one thing I wanna mention before we begin is that the colors I use, you do not have to follow along and use the same colors. Please use any colors that you're feeling inspired to use. The only thing I wanna caution you about is that this is the amount of icing we gave you. So if you outline all of your colors in the same color, you're gonna run out of that color faster. So try and vary the colors that you use. Especially with our Easter basket cookie, there's a lot of white on this cookie. So I didn't want to do too many cookies in white and risk running out. So just keep that in mind as you're choosing your colors, that you don't wanna do all of them in the same color because you don't wanna run out. All right, so Easter egg. Like I said, choose any color you'd like. And what I'd like you to do is practice that same technique that you did on your practice sheet. Try and go as close to the edge of your cookie as you can without going over. All right, so you can start anywhere on your cookie and just go along the Easter egg. My line just stopped, so I'm just gonna pick up where I left off. If at any point you are not happy with your icing and how it looks, take that toothpick and just scrape it right off and start again. It's so easy to fix any mistakes or any things you don't like at this point because the icing can just swipe right off so easy and there'll be no sign that it was ever there. So that's what your toothpick's for. So that's all I'm gonna do to this Easter egg cookie right now, and now I'm gonna stop with that one. I want that outline to harden up and get ready for the next set. So on the duck, on the little chick here, I am going to outline the whole cookie except for the beak. I'm just going to leave that part alone. And I'm gonna follow along the outline of the cookie. I like to go as close to the edge as I can because I love to have a lot of icing on the cookie. And there we have it. That's as much as I'm gonna do for right now. I'm gonna move on. All right, the peep bunny. Let's see. I think I'm gonna do this one in pink. So on this peep bunny, I really am following the shape. Peeps are a funny candy. I always like to ask people if they like them or not. I'm not a big fan of them. I don't dislike them, but that's not what I would choose. I would totally choose something chocolatey, I think, for Easter candy. Okay, so we did these, and now we're gonna shuffle our cookies around. I like to work on the cookies when they're closest to me. I have more control with my hand. I don't have to reach across the table and try and outline cookies. So I like to keep them closest to my body. All right, so the tulip, choose any color. Tulips come in all of these colors. So choose any of them, follow along the outline. I'm even gonna just make the stem portion the same color. All right. This little bunny here, from the side angle, I'm going to use this light blue. In case you can't see the ear portion well, it doesn't really have a separation between the ears, so I like to create that with the icing. There we go. Little profile of the bunny there. All right, so for the Easter basket, here's how I'm going to encourage you to do this one. This one is the most challenging of all of them. And the way that I want you to really look at this is I want you to imagine the bow that is at the top of the Easter basket. And we're going to start with our bow. And that's going to help us spatially get ready for what's to come. So you can definitely follow along this top area of the bow. And then when you get to this other area, you have to just imagine what a bow is like. It has those beautiful ribbons that dangle down. And I just try to make it symmetrical. I try to make it look the same on both sides. So just do your best. So I chose pink as the ribbon on my Easter basket. And then after that's complete, I want to imagine what the rest of this will look like. So as you can imagine, this area here will be the basket part, where all the goodies will go, okay? And then we're going to just fill that space in as our lower area. And then you can imagine the handles of the Easter basket would have this beautiful ribbon tied on top. So I'm just following along the outside here. And I want to create that space for the handle. So I'm going to choose a thickness, and I'm just going to try to keep it that same amount of cookie in that area there. That's going to represent the Easter basket handle. There we go, kind of like that. So after you get that part done, you've done your outlining. You've finished the first step. Way to go, you guys. I'm so excited. All right, so you finished step one. Let's move on to step two. I'm going to carefully shuffle my cookies back to the home row, the ones that we started with. These have had a little bit more drying time. The outside border has crusted over and is ready for our flood icing, which is the same icing that we just used. We're just going to trim off a little bit more of our bags so that the icing will come out just a little bit faster. So I don't want you to trim off a ton because it will pour out and you won't have any control. Trim off a little bit. You can always trim more. All right. When you flood your cookie, you're just putting on a lot of icing. Your goal is to put on a lot of icing before it starts to dry and crust over. We want it to dry nice and smooth. So when I start, I don't start right at the edge. I kind of work my way close to the outside edge in, and then at the end, in case it hasn't moved all the way to the border, I kind of just push it there very gently. So I'm using the tip of my bag to just blend this icing together. And then at this point, I like to use my toothpick or boo-boo stick and just very carefully just nudge this icing to the edge. It's just a very gentle tug because you don't want it to start overflowing. Now, if it does start overflowing, which does happen all the time, and it's totally not a big deal, if the icing starts to pour over the edge like a waterfall, best thing is to let it just happen. It's really hard to stop that process once it starts. So if you let it just go, it's gonna flow over, and then when it dries over and crusts a little bit, you can swipe it off later. So just let it go. Maybe too much icing was put on if it starts to flow over the edge. So at this point, I just finished flooding my cookie. If there's any like weird ripples in it, you can gently tap it on your table, very gently. And that helps to settle any, weird spots that might be rippling. So let's do the same thing to our next cookie. We're just going to flood these cookies here. And my chick here is quite big, so I wanted to trim off a lot of this yellow bag to make sure it comes out quick enough before it starts to dry. I think what's so neat about decorating cookies and having people do cookie kits at home is that we all started with the same shapes, the same exact shapes. And in the end, there are going to be so many special masterpieces. And I absolutely love it when you guys post pictures and share your masterpieces with us. We think it's so fun to watch other people enjoy cookie decorating too. It's a really fun process. I think we all tend to get lost in it, and it's kind of relaxing, isn't it? So I'm just pushing it very gently up to the edge again. If at any point I'm working faster than how you're moving, if I'm going too fast or you miss something, remember it's a video and you could just press pause and go back and watch it. I don't want to hurry you along. After I flood a cookie, I sometimes just tap it to make sure that it smooths out nice and smooth, kind of like an ice skating rink. It's really glossy. All right, so I'm moving on to my Peep Bunny here. I want to trim off my pink just a little bit. And flood. I think the flooding stage is the one that's just most relaxing for me. When I first started decorating cookies, I had little kids at home, and this was kind of like my craft. It was my creative outlet. I think it's really fun. And I think my daughters thought it was fun too, because they got to sample and have treats. When I'm pushing up the icing, I always like to look up at the top of the cookie. It's easy to miss areas and have just a tiny bit of cookie peeking through. So always look all around your cookie, because once this icing starts to harden, you can't really go back and fix it. There we go. I have this one little bubbly area. I just want to settle down there. Oh, nice. All right, so we just did the 3 in front of us. So as you can imagine, they're very fragile right now. If we were to get a fingerprint in any of these, it's going to dent it. So I want to shuffle these, but I'm just going to use my finger to push it above and out of the way. I want you to be so careful. You just worked so hard. So just push those cookies out of the way so gently. All right, let's keep flooding. We'll be adding a lot of nice finishing touches to these cookies. I know they look so plain right now, but I promise we're gonna bring them to life in the final stage, which is detailing. That's when we do all the cute touches. All right. Now on this bunny, I'm going to show you a technique called marbling. And in case you don't want it to just be a solid color in the background, I'm going to show you something you can try. It's where you take a few colors and kind of mix them together and create a pattern in the background. So if you'd like to see what this marbling is all about, I encourage you to watch, especially after I'm finished flooding, because I don't want you to miss out on how to make that happen. I begin the process by flooding the cookie as I normally would. This is a wet on wet technique, and I'm going to use 2 different types of wet icing, and that's what will create this really fun look. So I first want to make sure I get all my icing pulled up to the edge. And then I'm going to use a few other colors in the background. I think in the background of this one, I'm going to use both yellow and white. And I'll show you why. So, using those other colors, I'm going to wipe off the tip of my bag a bit. I'm just going to make a couple stripes. Doesn't matter how many, I'm just going to space them a little bit apart. That way I can put a yellow stripe in between these. And you can only do this when the icing is wet. So while this icing is wet, I'm putting some stripes in the background. And they're not going to remain stripes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our toothpick, and I'm going to start over on one end and work my way over with this wet on wet technique. We're going to drag the toothpick down. I wiped off a little bit of the excess icing. And now I'm going to drag it up. I'm going to drag it down through the icing and back up. I'm going to work my way all across the bunny. And look what it did. It just took that icing, it blended it together, it created this pattern. And I'm just going to tap it a bit because this one little area over here, I just want it to seal back together. You see that? I'm just going to push it a little bit so it's one solid surface. There we go. Yeah, so that's called marbling. I just think it creates a really pretty effect in the background. It's something we do sometimes on cookies, and I just love how simple it is, but it looks so fancy. So that is marbling. Super fun. We're gonna have that as our background so we can do some writing on top a little bit later if you wanna try out some writing. And on the Easter basket, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're going to flood the bow. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the basket. I haven't trimmed my white yet, but after the handle, I'm definitely going to trim the white. I'm gonna trim off just a little bit so I can fill that lower area a little faster. We're going to be adding goodies inside this basket. We're gonna make it look like it's bursting with treats, but not quite yet. We want this part to dry first. If we added sprinkles or any of that sort of stuff right now, it would stick to all the wrong places. So, there we have it. You guys just completed your second step, which is flooding. Great job. Okay, so ideally, after you finish flooding, it would be great if you could step away for maybe like 5 minutes to just let these dry a little bit, allow them to crust over so we can put our finishing touches on top. Okay, so I'll see you in about 5. All right, so 5 minutes have passed, things have crusted over a little bit. We're gonna rebag our icing. And what that means is we're gonna take this icing that we just trimmed quite a bit off, and we're gonna put it in a fresh new bag so that we can trim off just a little bit. All right, so I have 2 bags in your kit. I'm making 2 color choices that I want to rebag. So look at your cookies and think, which ones do you want to use for finishing touches? I know that I'm going to use my white for some detail on my Easter basket. So to do this rebagging, I'm gonna trim off on the side a big chunk of the bag, and I'm gonna take that bag and put it inside the new bag. And then I'm just gonna squeeze the icing out. It's like a fresh start. And then you can tie a knot or use a rubber band or something, but you just wanna have a fresh new bag to work with. The other color I'm going to choose is pink. I'm gonna do some details with pink, and I'm gonna try some writing with pink. So I open up my bag first. I take that pink color and I just cut off a big chunk. Pop that old bag inside the new bag. So now I have these bags ready to go. I can start all over again, essentially, just trim off a little bit. I'm also going to get my sprinkles handy because we're going to use some of these sprinkles to put on the cookies if you'd like. You don't have to if you don't want to. All right, so I'm going to shuffle my cookies around. I want to go back to my Easter egg, and I'm going to start there. These have had more time to dry than the others. All right, so on the Easter egg, you can do any series of lines, any polka dots. You can just have so much fun decorating this. So I'm going to get my colors all handy, and I'm just gonna do a series of different lines and polka dots. I wanna show you some of the choices you can do. So it's so fun to play and do this. I'm gonna keep this color in my hand and just do a few different things. And then after the yellow, I'm gonna move on to a different color. I'm gonna trim my pink just a bit because I don't wanna trim off too much. I'm wanting to write with this one later. So I'm gonna do some polka dots here. It's really hard to stop detailing, especially on an Easter egg when the sky's the limit with what you can do. Same thing with the white. I'm just being cautious not to trim off too much. And I think I'm gonna use this blue too. Sometimes the same color on top of the same color is just so simple, but so cute. And I think that's it, my friends. I think that's what I'm gonna do to my Easter egg. So have fun detailing your Easter egg however you'd like. And I'm gonna move on to the chick now. Now in your sprinkle container, you're going to notice a series of different things. There are these 3 big Easter egg sprinkles. We're gonna put those in our basket. There are 2 eyeballs. I gave you 2 in case you wanted to put one on the chick and one on the side angle bunny. And to put that on, I just pushed it down into that soft icing because it's still really soft under there. Even though it's crusted over on the top, it's awfully soft there. And I know a chick does not have a pink beak, but in this case, he is, because anything is possible with cookies. I'm adding a little pink beak. I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to make a wing. So to do a wing shape, it's almost like a teardrop. Imagine a teardrop or a paisley. I don't even know how to describe that shape, but I basically like to just put some icing down and push it around a little bit until it resembles like a swoopy wing. See how the same color on top of the same color just looks so cute? So there's my little chickie there. And on the bunny, I'm gonna create the bunny bum. So we're gonna do the back of the bunny tail. And we're gonna use some sprinkles on the bunny, because why not? And the sprinkles I'm kind of gonna pick out of my set are those tiny ones. I think the tiny ones look so cute on this bunny. So I'm kind of just pushing the big ones off to the side, and then I'm grabbing a little pinch. I'm just gonna put some sprinkles down. You can use any sprinkles you want. You can get as carried away with cookie decorating as you want. You don't have to. I'm just going, I want to show you exactly how carried away you can get with choices, because once it's over, it's over. So why not make the most out of it? If you're doing this to relax and have fun, then really take your time and enjoy. And if you're doing this because you love to eat cookies and you think they're delicious, then just load them up with icing and sprinkles and have fun. You can create the experience you want it to be. So there, I've got a bunch of sprinkles on his cute little tail, and I'm done with the back side of that bunny. All right, so I'm gonna push these around. I'm gonna bring my tulip closer. I'm gonna add some details to the tulip to give it some texture and make it look like it has all those different layers. All right, so my pink, I trimmed it really, really small. So I'm gonna make a decision to move to this bunny real quick because I wanna write on him, and I don't want to trim, I wanna trim this one a little more for my tulip, but not before I write on the bunny. Because when I do writing, I like to be able to have a really fine tip. I feel like you can see it better. So what I'd like you to do is, I'd love to challenge you to practice writing a word on the paper. Maybe write Easter, maybe write your name. I want you on your parchment paper to just practice writing. See if it feels comfortable to you. If it's not something you feel comfortable with, you don't have to write a word. I just think it creates such a good space on this shape to write a word. So I want you to think of what you'd like to do and then go for it. All right, I'm gonna wipe off my tip and I'm gonna jump right in. It's great if you start at one end, that way you are sure to have enough room. It stinks if you start too far over and then you run out of space and your letters have to get so tucked. So I'm going to write Happy Easter. This is a little bit of a challenge to do writing. That's why I would love for you to pick any word. Or no word at all if you don't feel into it. with letters, you really have to press down and release your pressure quite a bit. It would have been cute to write Happy Easter too. I cannot believe we are talking about Easter and that it is almost here. My goodness, this beautiful weather and this beautiful time of year. I like to mix up sometimes lowercase letters and uppercase letters. I think the lowercase e is so cute. So there we have it. You can write on your cookie. And I am going to trim my pink because I want to go back and do my tulip now. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. Okay, so to do my tulip, what I like to do is outline the whole cookie again. This helps give it some definition and some dimension. It makes it pop, I feel like. And I just think the same color on top of the same color is so pretty. It's so simple and clean. Okay, so after you do that, I'd like you to extend one of these corners to the opposite edge. It kind of gives it that feeling of all of those petals overlapping. And then you can connect it there with like that little point. So that's how I do tulips. It's really simple, but it just gives it such a pretty look. Okay, let's move on to the basket. Oh my gosh, this is such a cute cookie. All right, so I'm going to do a little something up here to make the ribbon pop. I'm gonna give it 2 little loops, kind of like when you tie your shoes. I'm going to give it these 2 little loops up here, all right? And next, I'm just going to outline the rest of this ribbon. Just like we did with the tulip, it helps to give it a little bit of dimension. And then I'm going to make the center area I'm going to try to connect the sides. So I'm making like a big center. It's like a big knot in the middle. All right. And now, next part is I'm going to add some icing and sprinkles here because any sprinkles that touch any of this white basket won't stick because this icing is dry now. So to get the sprinkles to stick, we have to add some icing, right? So this icing I don't want to trim my bag. It's coming out on the slow side, but I'm going to be patient and just stick with it. It's going to be worth it. So squirt on some icing. This is what our sprinkles will stick to. We're going to give this basket the look of just overflowing with goodies. We're going to use the big egg sprinkles, and we're also going to use some of the other sprinkles from the container. Okay, so I'm gonna first put my eggs down because I want them to find their homes. There we go. It's gonna stick like glue. And then I'm gonna try to just nestle these in any areas that they'll stick. I didn't leave much space for them to stick, so I'm not going to get many on, but if you have a lot of space, then they will probably be sticking all over because the sprinkles will stick to any area that's wet. And you can even use your toothpick to kind of push them in, show them where to go. The goal is to cover up all of this white icing in the background. go. I think I fit on as many as I possibly can. And now that these are all pushed into the icing, they're going to start to stick down in. On the rest of the Easter basket, I'm going to give it the look of like woven, the woven wicker, or whatever Easter baskets are made of. So to go along the handle, I'm going to do just these simple rounded lines. We saved this one for last for a reason. This one has a lot of detail that you can add. You certainly don't have to, but you can if you're having fun with it. Okay, and then in this portion of the basket, here's what I would like you to do. I want you to imagine the center of the basket, and I'm not going to draw a line right in the center. I'm going to do two rounded lines, kind of highlighting, kind of like parentheses. And I'm going to work my way out to each side. And then I'm going to do some lines going across. This is like the woven look. And there we have it. There's our Easter basket. It's so hard to stop though. I don't even want to stop. But that's where I'm going to stop today. If you have any other special touches that you want to add to these cookies, please have fun decorating. But I think that concludes our class for today. I just want to tell you a few things about your cookies. So they're extremely fragile right now. You just put all this wet icing on them and they need time to dry. So the best place to put them is in the box that they came in. Tuck them away, let them sit out at room temperature to just dry overnight. Tomorrow is my recommended time to eat them. After they dry all night, I think they're at their best tomorrow. You don't have to refrigerate or freeze them or anything. Just let them sit out at room temperature. We don't have any nuts in our cookies, and we don't use any nuts here at the cookie shop. So our cookies do have wheat and dairy in them, but no nuts. And other than that, I just want to thank you for joining me today. Please share your pictures of your cookies with us. We love to see what you do. And check back with us again soon. We make cookie kits all the time. So if you enjoyed this, tell a friend, and we hope that you'll join us again in the future. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.